Have you ever felt that? Well, that relentless pressure to stay well-informed, or maybe you've heard that old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Oh, absolutely. We've all seen them, right?
Yeah.
Those people who just seem to glide through everything, always knowing the right person, finding that perfect moment.
Yeah, it's like they have some secret map, and you're left wondering, what am I missing here? It can feel a bit overwhelming, honestly.
It really can. And there's this idea, isn't there, that some people are just naturally good at connecting, while for the rest of us, networking feels, well, kind of forced, like a chore.
Exactly. Something you have to do, not something that could actually be, fulfilling.
Right. Transactional, almost.
Well, today we're doing a deep dive that really tries to flip that whole idea on its head. We're getting into what really drives success, both in your career and, well, just in life. And we're doing it through the lens of Keith Ferrazzi's amazing book, Never Eat Alone, co-authored with Tal Raz.
And it's so much more than just a business book, isn't it? It's really a philosophy, a way to build a more connected, more meaningful life.
Totally. So our source material today is straight from the book, Ferrazzi's core ideas, his strategies, and lots of really personal stories from his own life.
Yeah, it's not theory. It's packed with practical stuff on building relationships that are actually genuine, mutually beneficial. It really challenges that old, cold view of networking. Shows connection is, well, it's everything.
So our mission today, we want to unpack Ferrazzi's own story, how he started, how he figured this stuff out. And we want to pull out the absolute best bits, the most actionable advice, stuff that maybe even surprises you.
Things that push back against that whole transactional view.
Exactly. We want to show you, our listener, how you can actually build your own powerful network. Ferrazzi calls it a quilt of trusted relationships.
Because his core belief that relationships are the real currency of success, professionally and personally, well, we think it's profoundly true. And it applies to everyone, right?
Absolutely, no matter where you're starting from. So let's get into it. Let's really dive deep.
Okay, so let's kick things off with Ferrazzi's origin story, because it really doesn't start where you might expect. Not in some fancy boardroom.
No, not at all. He grew up in a working-class town, Steel and Coal, southwestern Pennsylvania. Pretty modest background. His dad was a steel worker, mom cleaned houses.
Right, and he mentions you couldn't even see another house from their porch. It paints a picture.
It does, and what's really fascinating is how just observing things as a kid shaped his whole outlook. He started caddying at the local country club, summers,
Carrying bags for the wealthy families nearby.
Exactly, and he watched them. He saw how the successful people operated. He noticed how they found one another jobs, how they invested time and money in one another's ideas, helped each other's kids get into schools, get internships.
He saw this whole invisible web of support and connection.
He really did, long before he could label it networking or anything.
And that led to this huge aha moment for him, didn't it? A real shift in understanding. Yeah, he puts it so powerfully. He says, poverty, I realized, wasn't only a lack of financial resources. It was isolation.
Isolation from the kind of people that could help you make more of yourself. Wow.
It just completely changed his focus, away from just talent or money, which, let's face it, he didn't have much of, and onto the power of relationships, connections.
He saw that trying to go it totally alone was maybe the biggest obstacle, more than lack of money even.
Precisely. And his first, practical lesson came from a golfer he caddied for, Mrs. Poland.
Right. He talks about how he'd really go the extra mile for her, scouting the course, checking the greens.
Busting his behind, as he says. And she started winning. And then she'd brag about him to everyone.
So suddenly, everyone wanted Ferrazzi as their caddy.
Exactly. And that taught him, in his words, a simple but profound lesson about the power of generosity. You help others, they help you.
He calls it reciprocity later, but back then
it was just care. They looked out for each other. There wasn't some calculated thing. And that really stuck with him. Business is human. It's about people. Relationships first.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting, because he takes that observation and completely challenges the standard idea of networking.
Well, totally. That cold transactional thing, where you're basically keeping score of favors. He saw that wasn't what was actually happening on the golf course.
He says, what I saw, friends helping friends, had nothing to do with manipulation or quid pro quo. It wasn't like, I do this for you, now you owe me.
No, it was organic, authentic. So he reframes it. He doesn't call it networking. He calls it connecting.
Connecting. And how does he define that?
He describes it as the conscious construction of my life's path. It's about constantly sharing knowledge, time, energy, contacts, Empathy.
and a continual effort to provide value to others while coincidentally increasing my own. It's about managing the relationship, not the transaction.
Exactly. And think about it. Any successful leader will tell you it was the people, the relationships that made the difference, paved the way, gave them the breaks.
So why does this shift in perspective from networking to connecting matter so much?
Well, Ferrazzi hits on a core truth. People do business with people they know and like. Simple, but huge implications, right?
Definitely. And he says it goes beyond just business success, too.
Yeah, he argues our overall happiness, our well-being, is massively influenced by the community we build, the support, the guidance, the love we get from our network.
Which makes sense, especially now. Lifetime jobs are rare. We're often more like free agents.
Right, so our networks become our source of loyalty, security, even that sense of belonging that maybe companies used to provide more of.
Okay, so if you're building relationships this way, genuinely, how do you avoid falling into that trap of keeping score? Who owes who?
Ferrazzi's pretty blunt about it. He just says, there's no point in keeping track. Who cares?
Ah, that's liberating, isn't it?
It is. He thinks keeping score actually poisons the whole thing. Turns it into this anxious accounting job instead of a human connection.
So what's the alternative? He talks about a karma-tinged vision.
Yeah, basically, the more people you help, the more help comes back to you, and the more you can then help others. It snowballs. Like the internet, the more people use it, the more valuable it gets for everyone.
And he lives this, right? He talks about his former mentees now helping him mentor new people.
Exactly. It's a cycle. But he also gives a warning example, this guy, Hollywood David.
The guy who hoarded connections.
Yeah. Kept everything close to his chest, always calculating the value, never connecting people. And Ferrazzi says eventually the guy looked around and there was nothing left to hoard. His network just dried up.
Ouch. A real cautionary tale.
Totally. So Ferrazzi's rule is crystal clear. It's better to give before you receive and never keep score. Focus on generosity and the rewards follow. Your relationships, he says, they're the best expression of who you are. Your living resume.
Okay, so how do we actually do this? How do we put these ideas into practice for our own goals? Ferrazzi says successful people are serious about goal setting, right?
Absolutely. They don't just wish. They know what they want. And to help turn those goals into reality, he created this tool, the Networking Action Plan, the NAP.
The NAP? Okay, sounds like a system.
It is. Yeah. Very practical. It's got 3 distinct parts. First, you really nail down your goals. He suggests thinking in 90-day chunks, 3-year milestones, even 10-year ambitions.
Concrete steps. I like that. What's part 2?
Part 2 connects those goals to the specific people, places, resources. Basically, who and what can help you get there.
Okay, identifying your potential allies and resources.
Exactly. And then the third part is figuring out the best way to actually reach out to those key people. Is it a call, an intro, a conference meeting?
Makes sense. He gives that example of Jamie, the teacher, right?
Yeah, the aspiring history teacher. She used the NAP. Her 90-day goal was research finding programs, identifying hiring managers. 3-year goal, get a job. 10-year. 10-year.
And it worked.
It did. Her research led to contacts, courses. Ferrazzi calls it a symbiotic relationship between goal setting and reaching out. The more she planned, the more her network grew. And yeah, she's now a tenured teacher in Beverly Hills.
Wow. And you mentioned Michael Dell, too, wanting his own flagpole. A symbol.
Right, that visual goal driving his ambition. The key thing Ferrazzi hammers home is write your goals down. An unwritten wish is just a dream. In writing, it's a commitment.
Okay, so goal setting is crucial. What else? He busts a myth about when to reach out, doesn't he?
Oh, big time.
Yeah.
The idea that you only network when you need something like a job, he says that's totally wrong.
You have to reach out before you need anything.
Exactly. Long before you need anything at all. Because that changes the whole vibe, right? You're not coming from a place of desperation.
You're coming from a place of wanting to offer value, to connect genuinely.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Like that example of George, the guy starting a PR firm.
Yeah, Ferrazzi told him to start finding clients before the business was even officially set up.
Right. So those first conversations weren't tainted by needing the sale immediately.
Yeah.
It was about building relationships first, laying the groundwork.
That proactive approach, though, it takes some, guts, audacity, as Ferrazzi calls it.
It really does. And he learned that from his dad, the steelworker.
The story about his dad cold calling the CEO, Alex McKenna?
Yeah, a guy he'd never met.
Well,
calling him up to ask for scholarship help for Keith. His dad's philosophy was simple. The worst anyone can say is no. He couldn't be embarrassed when fighting for his family.
That's incredibly powerful, and Ferrazzi clearly inherited that.
Oh, absolutely. Think about him seeing Phil Knight, the founder of Nike, on a bus at Davos.
Right, like seeing a rock star, and he just went for it.
Made a beeline for the seat next to him, total audacity, and that single move landed his company, its first huge client.
Wow. He says, nothing in my life has created opportunity like a willingness to ask.
He admits the fear is always there, even now, fear of rejection. But he remembers his dad and pushes through. The potential upside is just too big.
Which brings us to that fear, doesn't it? The fear of rejection, of looking stupid. It stops so many people.
It's completely normal. He links it to the fear of public speaking, which people often fear more than death, apparently.
Crazy, right. But he says you have to confront it.
You have to. He tells that great story about Deanne Rosenberg.
The career counselor who saw the article about no women speakers at the AMA.
Exactly. 1969. She reads this article lamenting the lack of female voices, and she just writes to them, look no further.
Bold.
And when they didn't reply, she wrote again, basically saying, put up or shut up.
Huh. And it worked.
It did. She became the first woman to speak for them. Her secret. A mix of self-assuredness, persistence, and, yes, audacity.
So the choice isn't really success versus failure.
No. It's taking risks for greatness versus risking nothing and guaranteeing mediocrity. The fear of failing is riskier than actually failing, in a way.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. That dreaded scenario, walking into a room full of strangers, the awkward silence, small talk.
We've all been there. Ferrazzi's take on small talk is pretty straightforward, actually. The goal: start a conversation, keep it going, create a bond, and leave with the other person thinking, I dig that person.
So it's not just filling silence, it's about making a real human connection, even briefly.
Exactly. And he really throws out the old rule book here. The advice to avoid anything too personal, too controversial.
Yeah, keep it light, keep it safe.
He says, wrong. Don't listen to these people. He thinks that just makes you boring, forgettable.
Ouch. So how do you become memorable then?
By being yourself.
Yeah.
Authenticity. And this is the surprising part, vulnerability. He calls it one of the most underappreciated assets in business today.
Vulnerability in a business setting. That sounds risky.
It can feel that way.
Yeah.
He tells this amazing story about a fancy executive dinner, heads of marketing from huge companies.
Okay. High stakes.
Totally. And the conversation was just dead. Polite, but superficial. So Ferrazzi took a gamble. He opened up, talked about a rough day, tough board meeting, even a recent breakup. Just laid it out there.
Wow. How did that go down?
Amazingly, it completely broke the ice. Other people started sharing their struggles, their personal stuff. It turned into this incredibly open, cathartic moment, as he calls it. People bonded.
So being real actually created a stronger connection than being polished.
Exactly. His point is, charm is simply a matter of being yourself. Your uniqueness is your power.
Okay, but besides sharing personal struggles, how else can you be interesting?
He talks about conversational currency. Basically, stay curious, know what's going on in the world, develop some niche interests, like him getting into cooking at Le Cordon Bleu.
Right, so you have something interesting to actually talk about.
Exactly. Makes you someone worth talking to. He also mentions the Johari window concept.
Ah, the psychology model. Open self, hidden self.
Right. His point is to try and subtly mirror the person you're talking to, their pace, their energy, while staying true to yourself. It builds comfort, helps keep that window of understanding open.
Makes sense, being sensitive to the other person. And he warns against being an eye darter, right? Always looking for someone better to talk to.
Oh yeah, huge turnoff. Make the person you're with feel like the most important person in the room. That's how you become memorable to them. And if all else fails?
You're wonderful. Tell me more. Simple but effective.
Okay, so shifting from small talk to outreach. The dreaded cold call. Why is it so often torture?
Because there's zero credibility, right? The person has no idea who you are.
Exactly. So Ferrazzi's strategy is all about building that credibility before the main ask. His first step, drafting off a reference.
Finding a mutual connection.
Precisely. Like when he wanted to connect the WebMD founder, Jeff Arnold, to the CEO of Sony, Howard Stringer.
He didn't just call Stringer out of the blue.
No way. He went through a mutual friend, John Portilla, who ran an agency that worked with Sony. That shared connection instantly gave him credibility. Bypassed the initial suspicion.
He mentions that Harvey Mackay ad, too, the one where the prospect says, I don't know who you are. What did you want to sell me? Brutal.
Exactly. But Ferrazzi points out, today with LinkedIn and stuff, finding those connections is easier than ever. We're often just 1 or 2 mouse clicks away.
Okay, so reference first. What's next?
State your value. immediately. You have maybe seconds to answer the unspoken question, why should I talk to you?
It has to be about them, right? Not you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What can you do for them? Show you've done your homework? You understand their world, their challenges, make it personal, specific.
Got it. Then he says, talk a little, say a lot, be quick and clear.
Yeah, be efficient, be convenient, but also be definitive.
Right.
Don't say, let's get together sometime. Say, I'm in town Tuesday. How about lunch? I'll make time.
Creates urgency, shows commitment, makes it harder to say no or, well, maybe later.
Right. And finally, offer a compromise.
Meaning?
Have a fallback if the big ask doesn't land. Like when he called that Sony exec, Serge. He pitched his idea, but then added, hey, even if you're not interested in that right now, I'd still love to meet because our mutual friend thinks so highly of you.
Ah, so it softens the ask, keeps the door open for just building the relationship. Smart.
Very. It shows flexibility and respect for their time.
Okay, but what about getting to these influential people? Through the gatekeepers, the assistants, the secretaries.
The gatekeepers. Ferrazzi learned this lesson the hard way. He talks about his rough start with Mary Abdo, his CEO's assistant at Deloitte.
He complained about her to her boss. Oof. Bad move.
Huge mistake. He realized assistants aren't just helpers. They're often trusted friends, advocates, deeply integrated into their boss's professional and personal lives.
So you don't try to bypass them, you make them allies.
Exactly. With respect, humor, genuine compassion, he had to really work to win Mary back over to smooth things out. Later, when hiring his own assistant, he even asked Mary to help screen candidates.
Smart. Shows respect for her judgment.
Totally. His conclusion. Once you make the gatekeeper an ally, there will be few gates that aren't open to you. They hold the keys.
All right, let's talk about strategic environments, conferences. Ferrazzi sees them differently, doesn't he? Not just a getaway.
Not at all. For him, a conference is a well-coordinated campaign to further your mission. He even suggests thinking about the ROI return on investment before you even decide to go.
Seriously, like, is the potential value worth the time and money?
Exactly. If yes, you go in with a plan. If not, maybe skip it. He uses this great analogy from his friend Paul Reddy. At a conference, you're either a bowling ball or a pin.
Okay. A bowling ball or a pin, explain that one.
The bowling ball rolls in and makes things happen, makes an impact, connects, achieves goals. The pins, they just sit there waiting to be knocked over, hoping someone notices them.
So definitely be the bowling ball. How? What are the strategies?
First, he says, help the organizer.
Yeah.
Get involved beforehand. This makes you an insider. You get access to guest lists, maybe invites to VIP dinners.
Like his experience helping Mike Hammer with that Forbes conference gave him inside access.
Exactly. Even better. Listen, better yet, speak. Get on the agenda, even a small panel. It gives you instant credibility. People will approach you.
You don't have to be the main keynote.
Not at all. Start small, offer value, show your expertise. It changes how people see you there.
Okay, what else? He mentions guerrilla warfare. Sounds intense.
It just means organizing your own smaller event within the conference. A private dinner, drinks, a tour, something more intimate than the big, noisy main events.
Smart. Creates a better space for real conversation. He used to fax invites to the hotel.
Yeah. Pre-invites, faxes,
Yeah.
whatever it took to gather a smaller group for deeper connection. It's really effective.
And then there's the deep bump. What's that about?
It's like a super efficient mini-meeting. 2 minutes, tops. Make contact, establish just enough connection to secure the next meeting, and then move on.
He used this on Barry Diller, right? The IAC CEO.
The legendary example. He positioned himself perfectly, delivered a super concise pitch, name-dropped his boss, who Diller knew. Boom. Got the follow-up meeting. It's about being strategic and quick.
And finally, know your targets. Have a hit list.
Pretty much. He literally keeps a folded piece of paper with 3-4 key people he wants to meet. He notes down what they talked about, how to follow up.
And the focus should be on the people, not just the speakers on stage.
Absolutely. The speakers are great. You learn things. But the real long-term value is in the connections you make with other attendees. Shaking the king's hand is less valuable than a real chat with his advisor, right? Depth over just checking a box.
Makes sense. Okay, so beyond conferences, he talks a lot about connecting with super connectors. Who are these people?
These are the hubs in the network. The people who just seem to know everyone. Ferrazzi mentions Malcolm Gladwell's idea that acquaintances are social power. The more you have, the more influential you are. Superconnectors have acquaintances in spades.
And this relates back to that 6 degrees of separation idea.
Exactly. Remember Stanley Milgram's experiment in the 60s? Sending letters from Nebraska to Boston?
Yeah, they got there in about 6 steps on average.
Right. But the really mind-blowing part was that most of those letters went through the same 3 people in Nebraska. Those were the super connectors. They bridged different worlds.
Wow. So finding them is key. Where do they hang out?
Ferrazzi identifies specific professions, right?
Yeah.
He does. 7 main ones. First, restaurateurs, especially owners of popular spots. They know all the regulars, love making introductions. It's like a private club.
Okay, who else? Headhunters. Makes sense, they're professional matchmakers.
Totally. Then lobbyists, super connected, persuasive, know how big organizations work. They host events too.
Fundraisers, they follow the money, know who has influence, who gives, very well connected.
Politicians, obviously. Constant networkers. Think Bill Clinton and his index cards back in college.
Yeah.
Already building his network.
Incredible discipline. Okay, number 6.
Journalists. Always looking for stories, sources, ideas. If you have value to offer, they're often quite accessible.
And finally, thought leaders. Academics, authors, consultants. People who attract influential followers around their ideas.
Right. These are all hubs. People who naturally bring others together.
He gives some great historical examples too. Paul Revere.
Yeah. His silversmith business, all his clubs, he knew everyone, heard all the gossip, the news, made him the perfect messenger. A living social network.
And Katharine Graham at the Washington Post.
Cultivated trust everywhere, even with people her paper was investigating, like Kissinger. Built bridges through sincerity.
And Vernon Jordan bridging civil rights and corporate worlds. Social arbitrage, Ferrazzi calls it.
Exactly. Making himself indispensable by connecting different groups. The big lesson, find these connectors. Actively seek them out. Get out of your usual circle and mix it up. That can dramatically expand your reach.
Now, Ferrazzi talks about deepening relationships, moving beyond just professional connections. He found that real loyalty often comes from helping with very fundamental needs.
Absolutely. He boils it down to 3 core things: health, wealth, and children. He says ultimately people's big concerns often circle back to making money, finding love, or changing the world. Address those, and you build incredible loyalty.
He connects this to Maslow's hierarchy, right? Helping with basic needs first.
Exactly. If you help someone with their fundamental security, their physiological needs, health, finances, that allows them to then focus on higher needs. And that help at the base of the pyramid creates the strongest bonds. Helping someone breathe easier, literally or metaphorically.
He shares some really moving stories about this, helping a friend with a cancer diagnosis.
Yeah, connecting him immediately with top doctors like Dr. Oz. Knowing that in a time of crisis, an expert connection is priceless.
And the story about his own family. When his dad was sick and a family friend got them amazing hospital access.
Arlene Treskovich.
Yeah.
Because her mom worked at the hospital. That connection meant everything. Ferrazzi says he'd still do anything for Arlene today. That's deep loyalty, built on real care in a time of need.
And the Jack Valenti story, helping his son with career advice.
Right. A relatively small gesture for Ferrazzi, but it meant the world to Valenti, the father. Helping someone's kids creates this huge sense of gratitude.
But there's a warning here too, isn't there? Don't offer help lightly.
Crucial point. If you're going to deal with people's most important issues, give those issues the commitments that they deserve. If you offer help with health, wealth, or children, you have to follow through. Otherwise, your good intentions backfire and your network will notice. Walk the talk.
That idea of being indispensable comes up professionally too. He talks about career karma.
Yeah, like helping Hank, the backpack guy whose business was failing.
Ferrazzi didn't just give advice, he acted like a switchboard, right?
Exactly. Connected Hank to a marketing consultant, got him intros at Reebok, even brought him into meetings. Hank had a great product, but needed the network. Ferrazzi provided that bridge.
That's real power, not hoarding contacts, but sharing them, connecting people across different worlds.
Precisely. He mentions research by Ron Bird at UChicago showing managers with diverse contact connections in separate groups actually get paid more, promoted faster, because they can bridge those gaps, bring in new ideas.
So it really confirms it's not just who you know, but how you connect them that drives success.
Okay, so you've made all these connections. How do you maintain them? In today's crazy busy world, how do you stay top of mind?
Repetition, right. That's Ferrazzi's answer. He calls it pinging.
Yeah, like miracle grow for your blooming garden of friends and associates. Little consistent touches to keep the connection alive.
He has a whole system for this, doesn't he? Rating contacts?
Yep. Rates them 1, 2, or 3 for how often to reach out, monthly, quarterly, annually. Groups them by location or industry on call lists. He even uses downtime, like making calls from cabs.
And using tools like Plaxo back then or LinkedIn today to keep info updated. Solves that annoying contact info is dead problem.
Exactly. Takes away the excuse.
What's his favorite pinging occasion? Birthdays.
Oh, yeah, the story about Kent Blossel, hadn't spoken in ages, sees the birthday reminder, calls him up.
And sings happy birthday. A bit awkward maybe, but...
But incredibly powerful. Kent was apparently moved to tears, said none of his family remember that year. Just Ferrazzi.
Wow, that's connection.
And Ferrazzi says, people never forget that kind of gesture. It shows you genuinely care. It makes you ask, why bother meeting people if you're not going to make the effort to keep them in your life? Nurturing the connection is the real work.
Okay, another big strategy for nurturing, dinner parties. He started doing this even when he was broke.
Yep, as an insolvent student in a tiny apartment, he believes deeply in the power of breaking bread together. Sharing food, wine, conversation, it just builds bonds. Shared experiences are way more powerful than transactions.
So how do you use dinner parties strategically to expand your circle? He talks about anchor tenants.
Right. These are the key guests, the influential or interesting people who will attract other interesting people to your gathering.
Like a well-known CEO, an artist, a journalist, someone people want to meet.
Exactly. If you can land a great anchor tenant, others will be much more likely to accept your invitation. These anchors bring energy, ideas, intrigue.
Makes sense. And he gives practical tips for hosting, guest numbers.
Yeah, ideally 6 to 10 people for good conversation flow, though he does more now. Have a theme, something to spark interest, like Perdita Houston's for women-only dinners.
Send invites early, focus on good food and wine, create a nice atmosphere.
Candles, music, all that. And crucially, don't seat couples together.
Forces people to mix and mingle with new faces. Smart.
Very. The main goal, though, have fun. If you're genuinely enjoying hosting, that energy spreads.
Okay, so we've covered building and nurturing the network, but Ferrazzi also stresses being someone worth connecting with. Your personal brand, your content.
Absolutely. He says all the connecting strategies in the world won't help if you're not actually interesting. Your content, your expertise, your unique viewpoint, your passion, that's what gives you authority, what makes people want to talk to you and about you.
And he really walked the walk on this, didn't he? Constantly learning new things throughout his career.
Totally. Total quality management, re-engineering, direct marketing, and then advergaming at Yaya. In each role, he deliberately developed deep, unique expertise, made himself valuable.
The advergaming thing at Yaya is a great example. Those fantasy sessions.
Yeah, brainstorming how games could be a whole new way to communicate. They basically invented the term by connecting dots, gaming trends, demographics, ineffective online ads.
And that compelling idea, that resonating pitch, made getting press easy.
Super easy. Because journalists are hungry for ideas, not just company news. Ferrazzi gave them a story about a whole new trend.
Which leads to his advice about PR. You are your own best PR representative.
Right. Don't just rely on firms. Build direct relationships with journalists yourself. Give them scoops. Be a reliable source. He got tons of press by offering great stories, not just self-promotion. You know your story best.
Unmaster the soundbite, right? Be able to explain your core idea in like 10 seconds.
Crucial for media. Quick, impactful takeaways. But he also learned a key lesson. Trumpet the message, not the messenger.
Meaning focus on the mission, not just boosting your own ego.
Exactly. Early on, he admits, he focused too much on getting attention for himself. And it backfired, alienated people. True influence comes from being known for something valuable, not just being famous.
That ties into mentorship too, doesn't it? Giving back seems central to his philosophy.
Hugely central. To teach is to learn again. He sees mentoring, that lifelong give and take, as the holy grail for connectors. It unlocks potential, shares wisdom, builds deep bonds.
His own relationship with Pat LeConto at Deloitte sounds defining. Started with audacity again.
Classic Ferrazzi. Approached the CEO at a party, leveraged shared heritage, boldly asked for 3 dinners a year at LeConto's favorite place.
And LeConto's pitchback was key. We care about you. We think you can make a difference. It wasn't just a job offer.
No, it was an invitation to a real relationship. Ferrazzi says the success was equal parts utility and emotion. He promised hard work and contribution. LeConto offered genuine care and investment, reciprocity.
But just asking, will you be my mentor, isn't enough, is it? You need to offer value back.
Absolutely. Show gratitude, show commitment, show how you'll contribute. Otherwise, it's just superficial.
And it's a two-way street. He stresses reaching back to help others as much as you reach up.
Yeah, he says his own mentees keep him sharp, give him fresh perspectives. It's a continuous cycle of learning and giving, benefiting everyone involved. Way more valuable than just one-off advice.
He connects this to Eleanor Roosevelt's legacy, too, using her network for principles.
A premier practitioner of connecting, he calls her. She showed how your network can advance your values, fight for causes you believe in, civil rights, women's rights.
Even when it caused backlash, like organizing the Marian Anderson concert.
Exactly. She didn't compromise her principles for her connections. She leveraged her connections for her principles, proving your network can be a powerful force for good, for changing the world.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping this deep dive up, Keith Ferrazzi's Never Eat Alone really paints a clear picture, doesn't it? Success, happiness, they're fundamentally tied to the quality and generosity of our relationships.
Absolutely. And it's not some magic gift. Building that network is a skill. It takes focus, that audacity we talked about, and just a genuine desire to give. Ferrazzi's own journey, from caddy learning about care to becoming this huge expert, proves it's possible for anyone. You really can't get there alone.
It's about shifting from that cold networking idea to real empathetic connecting, constantly giving, valuing the human bond.
Right. Being proactive, setting goals for your connections, getting good at conversation, reaching out strategically, finding those super connectors.
And then nurturing those ties, the pinging, the dinner parties, focusing on those core needs, health, wealth, children. It's ongoing work.
It is. It's tending the garden, basically.
Ferrazzi shares this really poignant personal story at the end, kind of tying it all together, looking for deeper meaning beyond just success. The Brooks Brothers shirt story.
Oh, yeah. He finally buys this shirt, this symbol of having made it, and the buttons fall off in the wash.
And he has this moment, right? This is what I've been waiting for, that feeling of emptiness.
Exactly. Which then leads him to that encounter at Davos, listening to S.N. Goenka, the businessman turned guru.
Talking about Vipassana meditation to all these powerful, wealthy people.
And Goenka's message was so direct. Happiness isn't about the money or the status. It's internal. He challenged them, despite all their success, were they stressed, imbalanced, feeling inadequate.
He urged them to find peace within their lives and connections, not just through external wins. Master your mind, not just your business.
It's a powerful counterpoint.
So Ferrazzi leaves us, and leaves you, the listener, with this question. What meaning exactly my soul was hungry for?
And his answer really comes back to the core of the book. Giving begets giving. We're all connected.
So the final challenge is for us, for you listening, actively cultivate those relationships. Not just for gain, but for fulfillment, for impact, as Margaret Mead said.
Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has.
So think about it. What connections will you nurture? What value will you provide? What difference will you make in this interconnected world? Build your quilt. Make it count.